Hello, this is Todd Chapman. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the JetPack keyboard system. The JetPack is a combination of a physical keyboard and a software application that work together to allow you to program complex macro and quickie events on buttons. So you have a series of buttons on the keyboard, and you can program very complex and unlimited number of events on a specific button. So let's jump into the keyboard first, and then we'll get into the software. So the main keyboard is laid out in 5 groups of 8 buttons for the main section and 8 buttons to the far left that are typically programmed for navigation purposes. Each button has a removable clear cap so that you could insert your own button label if you wanted to. Keep in mind, the system doesn't have any predefined button commands. You'll have to add whatever labels you want. You could add color coding to your button labels if you wanted to for your own personal preferences. Each button has its own corresponding RGB LED that you can program to whatever color and intensity that you want it to be. So you could arrange certain colors for certain buttons, and it makes it easier to draw the eye to a certain button as opposed to looking for the actual position of the button. There's an optional remote module called the R1, which allows you to have an additional 8 buttons plus a knob. The knob is a metal knob connected to a very high precision rotary encoder. The knob can be assigned to faders, effect sends. It can also be used to scroll up and down, scroll to certain tracks, etc. Okay, let's take a look at the software. We're just going to give you a general overview. We'll get into much more specific details of the software in other videos. So first things first, let's take a look and see that you have the corresponding RGB colors here that you would see on the keyboard. So whatever color is here on this button is going to be the color that you see on the keyboard itself. And each one of the colors, you can pull it up and change the color of it, and the color gets stored in a preset. Okay, let's talk about the button command list window, which currently is blank. I'm on a button that hasn't been programmed. All of the other buttons have been programmed in this preset, so you can see that each item is a predefined function that will happen when you press that particular button. So for example, press this button, it will start at the top and it will go down the list. If you want to mute an item or temporarily remove an item, just double click on it and make that item not function when you press the button. That's good for testing purposes. So in this case, we'll go to a blank button, and you can see that you have different menus. You have a general, which is sort of just items that may apply to lots of different applications. You have some items that are more specific to Pro Tools. Some items that are more specific to Logic, Live, Avid, etc. So let's go to Pro Tools, for example, and click on Add to add a new feature to the list. And then in this case, you could see we have some simple items such as press the return key, press a key, and then you would define what the key is to press. Press a key with the command key. Press a key with the shift command. So there's a lot of basic multi-button or multi-type finger presses that can be used to save time, and you could assign those to one button, and then you could string series of those together. As you can see, there's already been a lot of functions built in to just a Pro Tools list. And so you go to a feature and you select it, and then you've added it to the list. And then if you want to add another item to the list, add that list. And if you want to rearrange it, you could drag the item around and move it up and down. If you want to temporarily remove it, you can do so. If you want to edit that particular one, you can go into edit and change it to another feature. Then you would go to another button and make your changes for that button. Once you have a button set up, you could change the color for it, and now you've got a button with an assigned color. On the button itself, you could actually print out a label for the button and insert it under the clear cap. There's a feature called the button label reference that will pop up on your screen. You can position this anywhere you want to put it. I just put it at the bottom of Pro Tools in this example. You can make the button label pop up or go away quickly with a button. I've got a button here assigned just to make the button label come and go. There are cases where you may have a set of labels on the physical button that don't match up with what's actually happening on that button for that preset or for that bank. As you can see, you can scroll through different banks and the button name will change and the button function will change as you scroll through it. So it's, in this case, it's nice to be able to pop up your button labels on the screen for quick reference. In Pro Tools, I have created what's called an overlay. So basically you have this purple looking overlay over a fader. That fader frame will move to whatever track is active. So for example, if I'm working on this fader with a knob, I can easily see the active fader. If I want to scroll to another track, I can click a button. The fader frame will turn yellow, meaning I can then scroll to another track. It's also possible to scroll rapidly from one track number to another, even if you have a big session. I also created what I call a send box. And a send box is a box with 10 sends on it, and I can actually drag that box around. And I can flip from moving the fader with the knob to actually moving the send with the knob, and I can choose one of the sends. So I can select A, select B, select C, and I can go back to the main fader if I want to as well. I could also make the fader become wide. So if I like wide view, I can switch back and forth between wide or narrow. If I want to see, for example, have the track list to the left, I can make that view pop up as well. I also have a back button built in, so I can go back to the most recent track I was just on. I could also click track up, track down, or track left and track right, however you want to think about it. If you were in the edit view, it would be track up and track down. Here it's track left and track right. There's another feature that I built in called Favorites List. Favorites List is a window that I can pop up, and I can enter in all the tracks of the session, or basically important tracks of that session. Okay, and then I can move those tracks over to what I call the Favorites List. And in the Favorites List, I can select, for example, lead bus 1 or lead bus, and I can select test. Now test is track 80, lead bus is track 5. Alright, so let's close that window and let's click on favorite button. Okay, so favorite left. Now let's click on favorite right. And as you can see, we moved all the way down to track 80 with one click. Now we're back on track 5. We can ride that fader. I'm going to give you one more example that I've set up a button for in Pro Tools. I call this bump and save. So not only does it do some mouse moves and some button presses, but it actually does some logical arithmetic. So in this case, bump and save would be in the case of Pro Tools where you wanted to go save as, which there's no shortcut for, save as, and you want to increment the number from, let's say, 030 to 031. Okay, you want to increment your session up. Well, there's no simple way to do that in Pro Tools, so I take the number that it finds in the session name and I increment it with software. So in this case, we store the mouse position, mouse move to save, or the file menu, mouse click, move down to the save as position, mouse click again, slight delay needed. We'll copy the number that the software finds for the file name, slight delay. We'll do a save as ++, which is an arithmetic function that I've added that actually takes the number that it finds, adds 1 to it. Another delay, paste the number back into position of the new number that has been incremented, and then press the return key. Okay, so let's see how this works in reality in Pro Tools. So I'm going to press bump and save. It opens up the dialog, takes the number 030, changes the number to 031, and saves it. Let's do it one more time. Takes the number 031, changes it to 032, and saves it. Alright, thank you for checking out this introduction video. There will be many more videos coming soon of specific tutorials on using the software, as well as more specific examples for Pro Tools and Logic, etc. Alright, thank you.